Good afternoon, everyone. We're in the special business meeting for the District of Squamish for Tuesday, December 17th, our last official meeting before 2020. As always, we're meeting today on the Squamish Nation traditional territory, Squamish, Squamish, Oweomeo. Council will be happy to know that I've been talking with Deanna Lewis about getting language lessons in the new year, so I will figure that out. Well, I'll learn to say that properly. May I have a motion to adopt the amended agenda? Moved by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor French. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, first up, community enhancement grants. So, do you want to start by giving us a summary of where we are at, and then we'll go from there?
Sure.
Okay.
So here's the totals of where we're at right now, left off from last meeting. On screen. We had a few parking lot items. To start with would be the BIA.
Okay.
The information was distributed to council that was requested. Feedback on the breakdown of the Canada Day portion. And so everyone's seen that. We also have a quote for the in-kind portion, which was the total on there. For the 10,000.
Did that come by email? The BIA information?
This came by delivered to Linda. He sent it to council. The BIA breakdown.
That's right. Yeah.
Sorry?
I also can put it up on the screen if you'd like to see.
Oh, the breakdown.
The breakdown.
Sorry, I got that this morning. And forward.
Yeah, I don't think council's seen it, so if you can put it up on the screen, that would be great.
Sorry about that. I'll send it now for those that have the email up.
So,
The total was $22,950 for the additional Canada Day expense for the fireworks in Brennan Park. And that is not with the in-kind maintenance hours, which was an additional $10,360.
so 6,000. Okay. Council thoughts on Ms. McDonald, what did you say the in-kind was for Brennan Park?
The in-kind was $10,359 in addition to this.
So that's part of that 13,488 that they've requested. That would be the Canada Day portion, is
That
the
was the Canada
10,000?
Day. Yes.
Councilor Race?
Yeah, I, even more so now seeing the numbers, liked where I thought we were sort of headed last week, which was not to fund the fireworks, but to focus the funding on the downtown portion of the ask. And I think that's where I am right now.
Councillor Stoner and then Councillor Pengil.
I'm still unclear as to what the breakdown would be then for the ask for cash versus in-kind. So it would be removing just over 10,000 from the in-kind request. And then the cash component that's related to the fireworks up here is $6,000?
Yeah.
6,000. Plus the
Where do you get 6,000?
Well, that's anything related to fireworks.
So the 5450, the 50, and the
5450, yeah, here.
and the 500.
These are all related to the fireworks.
Oh, okay. Are you good? Councillor Pengil?
So sorry, this whole 22,950 then, that isn't,
This is all the Brennan Park portion, the evening portion with the fireworks and the music.
okay, so we would, without this, we would be about, the cash request would be about 8,000?
No, because they still want to hold a Canada Day event. They just don't want to do the fireworks. So that's why Councillor Stoner said that's about the $6,000, those last three items in the first group of costs. They would still probably want an entertainer, they'd still be
For downtown.
for downtown. They just don't want to, we just may not fund the Brennan Park piece. That was the part we were trying to separate out.
The equipment rentals piece would presumably go way down if you didn't have to do all the barriers and crowd management and stuff at Brennan Park.
Yes, possibly. Do you have another question, Councillor Pingree?
So, like, what is the remaining ask cash and in-kind if we don't do the fireworks?
So if we don't do the fireworks,
Yeah.
would they just reduce the 40,000 down to 34?
Last year was 50.
If we make the assumption, if they continue with the band and the equipment and everything,
It's still on the
if that's, sorry,
Yeah.
I think
Oh,
what's
sorry.
challenging, Councillor Pengil, is we're not comparing apples to apples. They didn't break their numbers down like this for the whole ask. And they, in their text there, it says we've added hours for the management of the event.
Yeah.
So I think full stop, we could take off $6,000. That's for the fireworks. We can take off $10,359 of the in-kind. That was for fireworks. And the rest is basically comes down to how much we want to fund the BIA for all three of their events. They can use the money however they'd like. So it's not, this is not going to be an exact science, unfortunately. Councillor Herford.
Okay.
Just,
Thank you. That last bit of the conversation sort of clarified it for me. And given that whatever we approve, they can adjust this budget anyway, so it's still sort of hypothetical for the most part. So is their ask 15 cash? Okay, I'm just trying to figure out where we want to be if we match last year's or if we increase those, basically where I'm at on this one. I'm okay with everything being downtown. That means that we use the fireworks, but then it falls more squarely with the ideas. So,
Councillor Reese?
Yeah, taking out the Brendan Park portion of it, which is just over around $6,000. I was assuming when I made the first comment that some of those costs up there would be incurred downtown. But when you take out that and you take out the in-kind portion, I think it was around $10,000 of moving everything to Brennan Park. It leaves you, I think, pretty close to where we were last year. And so maybe not quite in cash. But last year we didn't fully fund it in cash either compared to their ask. And so I would be inclined to suggest we just go to last year's numbers. $15,000 cash and up to $6,500 in kind, whatever might be incurred. And then if there's additional costs, they want to expand it, there are other sources for them, of course, to get sponsorship and contributions for it.
So, on the table is go with the same as last year.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor
Wasn't actually a
Stone.
motion, I was going to have it.
We can have a little
discussed
discussion,
first,
but there's
anyway.
support here.
Yeah.
Councillor Anderson, did you want to speak?
Yes. Just that I think that this approach would stimulate conversation towards next time. And then we can reassess, or the community can reassess who undertakes this event at Brennan Park, the fireworks event. And then we can reassess district's potential role in supporting it at that time.
Thank you. Councillor French?
I support this as well. And last year when we were having this conversation, we were told that their executive director was on the way out. We met the new executive director who's in her 6th week or something, and I think the BIA is in a better situation now to better pre-plan next year. So I support this. I think this is the way to go at this point.
Any other thoughts? Councillor Pettigo?
Just, are we clear on the total event cost at this point? Because, my understanding is the BIA's mandate is to sort of bring more business downtown. They have a significant amount of funding they get to do that. So I'm just trying to balance the funding they already have to attract people downtown versus what we're supplementing that funding.
So their application spells out what they,
Yeah, I lost track of all the numbers.
and this is just a high-level estimate about what it would cost for someone to put on the same event at Brennan Park. But I don't think that's what we're contemplating anymore. We're just saying, what's council's appetite for supporting 3 events downtown through the BIA?
Yes.
Okay. So right now, there's 15,000 cash and up to 6,500 of income.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just not sure I'm there yet.
Okay.
Because in my mind, unless I'm misunderstanding something, a significant or majority of the funding for these sorts of events should come from the BIA's existing funding stream. So I'm just trying to understand what we're offering versus what they put in as part of their business.
So do you have a question about their funding stream, their bylaw?
No, I understand. We talked, I think it was around $90,000 in annual revenue, but I don't recall the rough total cost of these events, so how much they're putting in versus how much we're putting in.
We'll have to look that up. Thank goodness for the binder. On this?
Yeah.
Yep, Councillor Stone?
I was going to say, reflecting on our conversation around this last year, I think we were even hesitant to fund, they had talked about bringing bigger headline names for kind of the arts or the performance component of Canada Day, and we had hesitation around us supporting that. And I think that's where we landed on the 15,000 in cash, was kind of that they can choose how they want to do it, but those spreading it out over those 3 events, important community events that happen downtown that are important for bringing people down to the business area, but also are a good source of bringing our community together. So I'm happy to support it at the funding level that we did last year.
So in the grant application, the events that they have as a budget is Christmas activities was $8,500, Pumpkin Patch was $5,000, and Canada Day was $45,000.
That's Canada Day inclusive of the fireworks, that 45.
Councillor?
Well, in light of all that, I'll make the motion that we go with 15,000 cash and up to $6,500 in kind.
Seconded by Councillor Stone. Go ahead.
And it's not exact, I think the mayor's comments are, I support those comments. This is sort of just a contribution. They can deal with it internally as they see fit, but it's our share of those 3 events. And if somebody else wants to come along and put on fireworks at Brennan Park, we can deal with that separately. And that's still a possibility for the community if somebody wants to step up. But I think I'm happy with that number.
I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, tick. Did we have another parking lot item?
The House and Women's Center?
Yes. So that was to add the 6,000 in kind.
They confirmed that that was in this.
And this is to take things from Pearls and help them dispose of it, things that they can't sell on.
Something like that.
Moved by Councillor Race to add the 6,000 in kind, seconded by Councillor French. Any discussion?
Just to
Yep.
clarify, we hadn't approved the 3 years, correct? We're not changing the cash amount that we had previously agreed to?
Correct. We're not doing a 3-year grant. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Other parking lot item, it was on the parking lot, but I think we talked about it, was the Sea to Sky Nordics.
Oh, yes.
We really, I think we had resolved the issue for the Sea to Sky Nordics at $5,000.
That's where we're sitting. Councillor Storm?
Well, maybe Councillor Race, because I was going to say, but then didn't Councillor Race bring up the discussion during the budget that if
Oh,
we
yeah.
were considering the community gardens water service extension as part of the budget items, then why would we be moving the Nordics into this process as opposed to operation?
Councillor Race.
Yeah, it was initially my suggestion at $5,000 is a bit of a compromise number for a $12,000 request. But then when we got into the budget after that discussion, there was a practically identical request or budget ask for the community gardens to connect up a water line to a community facility for $12,000, the same amount of money, incidentally. And it struck me like one or two others that we talked about, that notwithstanding the fact that it came in through the enhancement grant process, it was maybe, if we were in favor of it, it was maybe more appropriate to look at it through the capital budget, the same as the community garden request. So I don't recall us making a decision one way or the other. We had a brief discussion around that, but I'll suggest that those are the 2 options. The third option is nothing, but either $5,000 through the community grant application, or consider it as a $12,000 capital request similar to a community garden.
I guess my question through to Mr. Buxton is, do we want community projects coming onto our capital budget? Community-driven projects. I mean, we've got master plans and priorities that we're not even getting done, so I'm curious to your thoughts on that.
Through the mayor, it would be my preference not to, particularly on private property. Community gardens is at least in a municipal park. Sort of extending water service now onto private property is not something I want the annual water replacement budget being targeted for.
Was the Nordics request going across private property? I didn't recall, and I thought it was going under a road or across a road. But I admittedly don't have the details of it to service what is, I guess it is private in the sense that the society has the license from the province to run it as a park. So in that sense, it's private. So I agree with that.
It's a service line. I would rather not get into that capital envelope being used for those purposes.
From my conversation with the Nordics, I think they understood that they might need to fundraise to do this. And I believe they saw the district as perhaps being a contributor to that, but didn't necessarily, wouldn't stop just with our contribution.
I do appreciate that. I'm still hesitant from the perspective of the conversation that we had around the Brackendale Farmers Institute and helping them secure a water source on that land, and so I'm just curious. I'm struggling with how to reconcile those two pieces.
Well, one came in as an in-kind request, which would have been us asking staff to put aside their work plans to do work for a not-for-profit group, an in-kind request. And this one has come in as a donation to them securing the people to do the work and put the water line in. That's what it is.
And I think the other distinguishing factor is that the Nordics at least do have a provincial license to occupy this land or lease. I don't think there's any such security with the Farmers Institute and lands that I think at the moment, maybe even in the name of the Squamish Nation, the developer that we hope to one day get but haven't yet got. So I think that might be the other point.
All right, so do we want to contribute towards a water line or no? Is the question. Councilor Reyes?
Well, I'll move $5,000 from the Community Enhancement Grant budget.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilor Herford. Any other comments? All right, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Mayor Elliott opposes. Okay, what else haven't we done?
There was,
way over budget.
there was a note of helping hands, but I felt that we had already communicated this. That was right near the end. They already are on a year-over-year community grant, but they requested another $5,000.
Well, they had requested another $10,000 to expand their outreach program, and
Yeah.
we've discussed five.
Right.
Okay, so if we go down, oh, wait, sorry, Councilor.
Well, I did want to raise the Helping Hands one because I've been sitting with that one and actually went to the Helping Hands Christmas event on the weekend. And there's a lot of people there that I see in the community all the time, didn't realize they were needing services of Helping Hands and, long time members of the community, kids and stuff. So it really got me thinking in terms of some of the things we're giving money to and the amounts, not allocating the full 10,000 is a bit more of a challenge for me at this point. And the other piece, and I think we haven't really dug into our protective services budget, because I know we think, social services isn't really a municipal issue, but when we don't have adequate supports there, I think in terms of our protective services, fire, police, and so on, we end up shortchanging ourselves sometimes. So I'd be interested to see where we are in the final number, but that is one item where I would like to suggest maybe we consider the full 10,000 instead of just 5.
So currently, our total is 305,631 to the policy cap of 294,369.
Thank you for that reminder. Councilor Pangilius, would you put a motion on the table?
So I guess I would move that we fund the full 10,000 for Helping Hands instead of just the 5.
Is there a second? Not a seconder. And I suspect it's because they have an ongoing 3-year grant for this exact program. So, okay, so if we go down the 2020 approved column, this would be like our last double check on everything before we pass the motions in front of us. So, yeah.
And
Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, just before we do that, on my sheet, the printout, where we got to the bottom number, which at that time was 294,365, and then there's a deduction of CAC allocation of $30,000. I think that's the monies that come from the IPP that we usually funnel through to the SORCA grant.
Correct.
So that would, we'd still be receiving those funds. And is that going through, and does that affect that number?
My understanding is that it does not affect our cap.
So the cap is the 1% plus that 30.
Yep.
I'm sorry, can we go back to what our total was, 305?
305,631.
And that subtracts the 30,000?
That does not include the 30,000.
The 30,000.
That 30,000. Okay. Okay. So council, your option is to try and reach for the 294. Leave it at 305. Make it bigger than 305. If you so choose, but I think it's important if we just, everyone skim down the 2020 approved column and make sure that you're satisfied with what the numbers that are there. The Lawyers Post Association.
Yeah, if it's not listed here, it was approved
Councillor Stoner.
So I put this forward last time, but I'm going to try again, that we reduce the Squamish Minor Hockey Association in-kind grant to $4,000 from $6,000, in line with the other youth sports association requests. More in line with.
I'll second that. For discussion.
Yeah, I think that it's a challenging one. The budget is tight, and I think when I weigh this amongst other priorities, that dropping it down to that 4,000 benchmark is similar to what we provided them last year. And that is why I am moving this. I am working towards trying to get us closer to our cap.
Councilor Rich?
In light of where we're at and the cuts that we have to make, I'll support this.
All right, any other comments? Councilor Rice and then
Well-
Councilor Anderson?
We don't have to make the cuts,
We choose to make.
and so I won't support this. I
Okay,
liked it where it was.
thank you. Councilor Anderson?
There is a significant accommodation and restaurant sector benefit from these tournaments. So I'm cautious to chop them back too much, although they do have a strong team as regards fundraising. I'm still in the middle here.
Thank you. Councilor Bird?
Thank you. I would, overall on this process, as we've all heard, it's not any of our favorite processes, I don't think. I would like to see us be at or close to our policy cap. So, and looking at this list now that it's tallied up with all of our, where we'd like to be, I do see this reduction in this particular ask as being appropriate request to get there. So I'd like us to get there if we can. So I'll support this one.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Anderson, Race, Elliott, opposed, motion carries. So that's 4,000. I actually want to bring council's attention to the BC Whippet Racing Club in-kind ask, which seems high, and given that we only approved $5,849 for the Logger Sports Association, which brings in significant economic development. I'd like to suggest that maybe the BC Whippet Racing Club needs to cover more of their costs. Just in comparison, like if you, that one stands out to me as placed, and like Councillor Stoner, I'd like to get closer to our cap. To work within our means. So I'd like to propose 4,000 for that one, if someone would second that. Seconded by Councillor Anderson. I know this is a great event, but it's quite niche, and lots of people go out and enjoy it, and certainly the dogs are very well taken care of. It's not like horrible dog racing. But there's lots of need in the community, and I think that one could withstand a bit of a haircut. Charge a few more on the, no pun intended, for the entrance fees. Councillor Pitkill.
I'm generally with you, but I would suggest trying to be more in line with the others, that something between 2,000 and 3,000 would be more appropriate for consistency's sake. Just looking for that.
I like this figure of 4,000, and following Councillor Pettingill's thoughts, maybe we put them on notice that next year they might not get 4,000.
Because we won't be doing it next
It's a
year,
declining
hopefully.
scale.
Okay. All right. Yes, Councillor Gregory.
I'm supportive of this reduction. Like Councillor Pettingill, I could see this go further. So if we go to 4 on this round, I think we may potentially need to circle back and go deeper on this one. But I'll support it at this point.
Okay, so if I take your suggestions and put it at 3,500 as a friendly amendment, would my seconder agree with that, Councillor Anderson? You can say no.
Yes, I prefer not to.
Okay, so the motion stands at 4,000. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Where are we at now, Mr. Donald?
$2,000 closer.
Okay, $3,000 closer. Is there anything else?
Okay.
Councilor Ford.
Thank you. The two that are on school property, I see three school-related ones here. The graduation, I think, is great, and we support that, and that's a long-standing tradition. We do have a project at Don Ross, which admittedly isn't for a lot, it's $1,000. There's one at Squamish Elementary, it's for more, 2,500. And just sort of in principle, I feel that those should be coming from elsewhere. So that's 35 if we were to just remove them.
Can you talk about the numbers? Just having trouble flipping back and forth.
Number 13?
Number 13 and the other one's 27. Oh no, not 13. 13's I support.
13.
That's the.
That's all in kind.
That's in kind, that's Brennan Park, that's graduation.
Yep.
The other one is 12, actually, Don Ross Middle School. It's $1,000
And 27.
and 27.
Okay.
So,
If you're gonna put a motion forward, I would do them separately, not together. Because people may feel differently.
okay. Well, I'll start with 12, and we remove the cash and the in-kind from contributions from item 12, which is Don Ross Middle School.
The cash and the in-kind?
The in-kind is a rain barrel from us.
Okay, well then the cash, just the cash. How about that? We'll try to get a second here on that, just the $1,000 cash.
Second.
Second by Councilor French.
Sorry, is that being reduced to zero?
The cash to
is being
zero.
reduced to zero, and the in-kind staying at $55. Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Councilor Race and Stone are opposed. Motion carries. Okay, did you want to try the elementary outdoor classroom?
No, I don't want to do any of this, but I can. No, but I don't. Yes, I think we're gonna. I'll move that we reduce item 27, which is the Squamish Elementary outdoor classroom project from 25. We have approved to 0. Do you have a second? One second.
Second by Councilor French.
I'll speak to this one.
Yep, go ahead.
I think both of these projects are great, and we fall outside of our mandate. School district property, schools, and I think this is an area for either school district or the PACs or someone that's not us. This falls outside of our jurisdiction, and in the past we've gone and excluded things that were on school property. So I think this gets us all the way to our policy. We're almost there anyways. So.
Councilor French?
I agree with everything that Councillor Herford has said. I want us to fall within our policy amount, and this gets us there. And education funding, I want it to come from education, not us.
Councilor Stoner?
Recognizing it is a difficult situation and appreciate where my colleagues are coming from, but I won't support this like the previous resolution. Yes, it is on school property, but we have previously supported nonprofits to put edible schoolyard projects on school district land, and I think from those sorts of projects we've seen how alternative learning, garden-based learning can really change both the education system, but as well as it become a valuable asset for our community more broadly. And so these sorts of projects, although they are on school district land, I think that the district can play a critical supportive role in them, and that's what I think this community enhancement grant process could be used to do. So I will not be supporting that. resolution.
Councilor Reese?
Thank you. I'm not going to support this either. I kind of liked where it was and support this on a couple of different levels. It's also, we've significantly reduced the initial ask. And I understand, and I've often supported the concept of not funding things on school district properties, but there have been exceptions. And I look at this as one of the exceptions. So I'll not be supporting this motion.
Councilor Anderson?
Yes, as I mentioned last time, there is not only the Mamcom edibles project, but also Valley Cliff. Valley Cliff did not request any money from the district, but I have seen that project visit a couple of times, and its neighborhood impact is significant, so I will not be supporting reducing this amount.
All right, call the question. All those in favor?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We'll try that again. All those in favor? Opposed? Pettengill, Anderson, Race, and Stoner opposed. Motion fails. So that stays at 2,500. Okay.
The only stop
Okay, there we go. We're at 301, 433, unless anybody else has anything to say. And this is hard work and it's not easy, and the only place where you might look is to the BIA. It's a $15,000 cash contribution there. Councilor Stoner?
I'll remove that we reduce the cash contribution to BIA to $12,000, approximately $4,000 for each review.
I'll second it.
Second by Councilor French. Do we need any discussion? For myself, I think there's a balance to be had here between businesses sponsoring events like this, the downtown BIA, using their funding, and us, for sure, I see a role for us to supplement that, but when we've got so many other groups and we're cutting funding to schools projects, I think we also have to look at these as well. So I'll support that. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So that moves to 12,000. I'm going to call this complete unless I see a hand.
Close enough.
Close enough. Any other hands? Okay. So I'm just going to check with our minute taker. How do you want me to do these resolutions? Because some of them have changed that we approved prior. So do you need me to?
I just separated them out because some people were opposed on and wanted to on top.
Yeah, but we've changed like the Whippet Club, and so as long as I update
Yeah.
these
and
motions?
it was up to date before this meeting, but there's some changes.
Okay. Some of these have already been approved. Is there, can I do it off the spreadsheet in front of us?
Sure.
Councilor Pegler?
Do we have an option of just having a summary tonight and voting quickly this evening?
This is a special meeting, so we can do it today.
Yeah, just sort of so we have like one vote. Here's the current thing, yay or nay. I don't know.
Staff, what's your preference?
We could print it out and distribute it for tonight, if that's what you prefer.
Well, I just prefer to do it now, so
Okay, it's really up to you.
what does the rest of council feel?
Probably do it now.
Okay, let's do it now.
The only
Okay.
change, I think, from the agenda is just that one.
It's
Unless
4,000.
somebody else's, I will look at that, but I don't think we touched anything.
Okay, so let's do the first one. Um, So we update number 5 to $4,000. Do I have to do each of these individually, Shar?
So, some of these were separated just because there were people that were opposed.
So I do have to do them all separately?
Yeah, that one, there's a conflict with that one. And then this is our one.
There was a conflict or a disagreement on that one.
Yeah, exactly. So there should be 6.
Okay,
We changed
Don Ross.
John Ross, but also number 33 is Squamish Minor Hockey Association.
Where are they?
Well, we changed them today.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if we
Sorry.
did add them. It would be big.
No, we supported the in-kind. Okay. So, I'm gonna deal with the ones that we've changed separately. No, I'm not. Okay, that council will support removing the following requests from consideration. Number 8, Brackendale Farmers Institute, tree maintenance. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Hurford. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That we remove the consideration of number 9, Brackendale Farmer Institute water supply. Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Anderson. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That council support $5,849.16 of in-kind for the Lager Sports for facility rental. Moved by. So there's a conflict on this one.
Yeah, I would declare a conflict in this one. I do some frontline volunteering with them, so to miss any representation or any appearance
So
of
bias.
bias, that's
Thank
what
you.
I'll do here.
Someone move that. Moved by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Stoner. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Councillor Hurford. Okay, the next group, the motion will read to approve the in-kind request for number 5, BC Whippet Racing Club to $4,000, Brackendale Farmers Institute Traffic Control, $2,800, House Island Secondary, $2,687.79, Pride, Squamish, $4,000, Sea to Sky Singers, $2,753.88, Arts Council, $2,000, Pirates, $2,934, and Youth Triathlon, $2,000, and House Sound Women's Center, $6,000,
And Squamish Minor Hockey Association.
and Squamish Minor Hockey Association, $4,000. I think those are the only ones we changed in the in-kind column.
Yep.
Someone to move that? Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Hurford. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The council support an in-kind request of $2,500 for the Skate Sea to Sky Club. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Race. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The council support the 2020 Community Enhancement Grant applications as follows. So these are combo requests, I think. So Don Ross Middle School, we update that. So the cash is 0, the in-kind is $55. For the Rain Barrel Nonprofit Network, $5,500 from accumulated surplus. The remainder,
550.
$550 from accumulated surplus, and the remainder cash, and $200 in-kind from the Community Enhancement Grant budget. Squamish Rebuild Society, the in-kind portion is $2,000, and the Squamish Senior Center cash, $2,400, and in-kind $2,184.03. Moved by Council French, seconded by Council Pettingill. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Did we change anything else on our list, staff, today? The BIA?
The BIA.
Okay. That we support the BIA with $12,000 cash and up to $6,500 in-kind from Community Enhancement Grants. I'll move that. Seconded by Councilor Stoner. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Did we vote on the Sea to Sky Nordics last time? Okay. Councilor Reese?
Well, I'll just move it $5,000 cash.
To the Sea to Sky Nordics. I just asked if we'd already voted on that and someone said yes. I think we've already voted on it last time.
That's right, and same with the downtown Squamish BIA that,
No, we changed the amount today though.
yeah, but I had a motion earlier.
In the same conversation.
Oh, but we did actually, if I might.
Yep.
After the first motion, we reduced the amount all in this meeting.
So we're down to
Reduced
12,000.
12,000.
Yeah.
There was a motion earlier in this meeting.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, there was. Okay. Okay, I think we're good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Council. Council Pegno.
I just want to add, because we had talked last time about sort of staff coming back with a different process for next time, and I think I mentioned it last year, but I just wanted to reiterate, for me, I think it's incredibly important to have and to support community groups in doing some of the things we need to get done. My concern with this process has been, we have our OCP, we have our strategic plan, which I think should be directing all of our spending, to my mind. And my concern with this process, it kind of takes a chunk of money and kind of separates it from that. So I would like to see all of our spending go through staff's process of understanding what's the best way to achieve our goals. I just would hope that as part of that, we understand there is value in having community groups do some of that. So if we sort of completely do away with the community enhancement grant process, for me that's not synonymous with saying we won't be providing any funding to any community groups to do so. I think those are two separate things in my mind. I'm curious to see how things move forward.
Okay, we're good. We need Mr. Russell. Maybe we'll take a 2-minute recess till we find Mr. Russell. Okay, we're back at our special business meeting, and we're going to try and get a little bit further down the line on our 2020 budget and 5-year financial plan. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Russell.
Thank you very much, Mayor, members of council. Good afternoon. Okay, so let's just this just announces the date, so let's just jump directly to the question you asked. What do we do next? Today we have talked about the utility fees bylaw. Will be coming back tonight for adoption. The general fund operating and capital, you have reviewed the operating and capital projects. Today we hope to finalize the service level changes, and I will explain how all that stuff fits. We are currently planning a public meeting in mid-January. I believe the date that we have on our calendar is January the 16th, which is approximately 1 month from today, plus a date. So we are hoping that you will we're hoping that you will agree with the recommendations of administration and ask us to move forward with our current plans with respect to service level changes or any other recommendations that you may have today, such that we can prepare and provide the documentation to communications by the end of this week, and that will give them a couple weeks to prepare the packages so that we can provide public presentation material to be displayed here and at Brendan Park in early January in anticipation of said public meeting in mid-January. I'd like to have that out there about 2 weeks in advance of the meeting. And for all that to happen, it requires about 4 weeks of total preparation. It doesn't really require 4 weeks, but it requires 4 weeks when 2 of those weeks are over Christmas, New Year's. Subsequent to that, we will come back with a review of the public meeting information and input, along with a finalization of the financial plan. And at that point, probably more in-depth conversation around carry forwards. although you seem to want to talk today, so we'll
We
have a
don't
bit of
have
a
to.
discussion
We
on
don't have
that
to.
too.
I just want to know when we're
Um,
talking about, Carrie.
And our goal would be to have the financial plan readings in the first meeting of February and approval in the second meeting of February. From there, we would go forward, and due to the timing of finalization of assessments at the end of March, we would come back with property taxes in our normal review period in April. So this is our plan today for 2020 and next year, in keeping with council's desire to move the approval dates up. We will be shifting the whole process a little bit earlier in the year so that we can have the public meeting probably, I'm going to say, late November, and get the financial plan bylaw in front of council for their 2 meetings in December for approval in 2021. December of 2020 for approval of the 2021 budget. Now, I'm not being presumptuous. I'm just explaining that that is what you've asked us to do, and it will be somewhat aggressive and probably fairly snug on the timelines, but you know, you put it out there for us to attempt to accomplish, and we do our best to accomplish that. So, that being said, that is the further calendar, and I will continue from here. So, today's workshop goals. We will speak about the overview of the general fund. We'll talk about the capital projects and the information you have provided us on those. We will talk about special operating projects and the recommendations you have made with respect to those. We will also talk about service level changes. We will talk about the process for public input and a little further on comments that I have made with respect to input on input toward the documents for public presentation. We will have a Q&A with the audience. Hopefully.
It could be short.
Short. And then we will seek further council direction. And if all goes well.
We'll be done by 2:30.
Well, you push a hard bargain.
Okay.
Okay. So, you want to be done by 2:30 with no further ado. We're not even really going to talk about this. It's just people are listening, and so are we, and there are options for them to contact you and contact administration, and we will pay attention to their feedback and circulate it to council as it comes in, or I should say at various meetings. We're talking about the general fund. We've done some updating. As a result of the updating, our 2020 estimated tax impact at this point in time has gone up from 2.7% to 2.9%. Okay, and I'm going to give you the explanations on the following slide. I think it'll be a little easier to follow along. The service level change amount, the net amount of $691,000 is the same.
Hold on, we've already got a question. Councilor Beck.
You had the revenue from growth decreasing. Does that mean we've shrunk in population?
No.
It means we have-
Revenue in this instance is shown as a negative value.
Oh, so it's more.
And expenses are shown as a positive value. It's one of those funky accounting type things.
Keep you on your toes.
Yes. Yeah, well, it seems to be doing a good job. Nonetheless, keeping me on my toes, because I get that question once in a while. I always have to remember which direction they go. So what we wanted to show here is special projects. The number is a reduction year over year of $148,000 in tax levy. That's 148, yeah. Half a percentage point, give or take. Capital projects, an increase of roughly $178,000 year over year, 0.6%. Okay. And I will go on to explain how we have come about those two numbers. So this is an update of the high-level explanation for capital, which shows $1.79 million capital funding from property tax. You will note that this number is the same number that you had on your previous presentation on December the 10th. The changes that were made from December 10th were based on council resolutions. We have included library projects. Library projects are not directly funded by taxation. We have included demolition of the archive building. That also is not funded from taxation directly. And we have included some projects based on recommendations from administration. So we have included a community garden relocation project for approximately $13,000. And we have included the oceanfront DCC funded projects. And I will apologize, the oceanfront DCC projects were inadvertently buried in our carry forward projects originally in the original submission that you had before. That was not in fact correct, and as we reviewed the the carry forward projects for updates, it was noted that we sort of had the oceanfront projects in there twice, and we determined that they weren't all carry forwards. Some of them were actually the 2020 amount of a multi-year project. So we took those out and displayed those separately. My apologies, that was an error on my behalf. All things being said, those projects are DCC funded. They are not funded directly from taxation. So the impact on taxation of the changes that were requested by council at the last meeting for capital are zero. We'll now move on and speak about special projects.
Okay, just hold on. Council, is there any questions about the capital plan at this point? With the changes that we made. Yep, Councillor Stoner.
What is funding the library projects if it's not tax funding?
Library projects are funded by accumulated surplus. And the reason that they are funded by accumulated surplus is that one of the two projects, the recommendation within the resolution was to fund it from accumulated surplus. And for the other project, we spoke to the library, and the library was kind enough to give us a very good rationale as to what they were spending the money on, and agreed that they would build provision into their budget for future years commencing in 2021, and dutifully asked if administration would work with them to find funding for the computer replacement projects in the 2020 budget. We did a little bit of research into the financial affairs of the library and their state of accounts, and we were able to determine through their financial statements, which are consolidated with the District of Squamish, that they have approximately a $600,000 accumulated surplus, which is within the accumulated surplus account of the District of Squamish. So we felt it would be quite reasonable to tap that amount, or a portion of that amount, and use that to fund the replacement of these computers on behalf of the library.
Great. Thank you. Now you know there's another pot of accumulated surplus.
I'm right on that.
Thank you for that explanation.
You are welcome.
Yep, Councillor Reyes?
So still the two that I'm not sure that we made final decisions on is the two that are below the line, 43 and 44. Correct? Which I thought personally were still outstanding for decisions, but
Where I'm going to go at this point is council did provide resolutions last week with respect to the other capital projects. So one can make a management decision that either these are below the line and it is council's intent that they remain below the line. We would appreciate that if you would confirm that. Or council can make a decision that they wish to have a further debate on these projects and perhaps choose to have them go forward in 2020. At this point, we're working on the premise that there were no resolutions supporting those projects, so we're working on the premise that they are below the line.
I recall that the light up buildings was a nice to have, but not a must have.
Yeah.
And then the pickleball court is awaiting a grant application on their part, so we don't necessarily have to put the money aside.
Thank you very
They
much,
received
Mary
grant.
Ellen.
That's my recollection, but
Those were the recollections of myself. That's why we believe that they were not funded at this time.
Councillor Anderson.
Yes, a question regarding the library public computer system upgrade. I see on my sheet that is in fact the $40,000 listed under grant and other rather than accumulated surplus.
Because the other is the accumulated surplus of the library.
Very good, thank you.
The other. Okay, any other questions on the capital plan?
There.
Okay, let's
Okay.
move on to special projects. Is that where we're going next?
That is where we're going next. So, special projects. So you'll see there's some slight differences in the numbers, and the impact on taxation has gone up slightly. And I will speak to the difference in the impact on taxation in just a moment. So, special operating projects. Council included a resolution at the last meeting to include the downtown streetscape concept designs, except there's no scape in there, so my apologies. That was $45,000. Administration felt it was appropriate to include the Estuary Environmental Coordination Plan, which is funded by grants and also by taxation. There's $20,000 of taxation there. Those two projects make up to $65,000 of increased taxation that you see the difference between last week and this week. And Public Safety Master Plan, and Public Safety Master Plan is being funded by the Protective Services provision.
Can I get Ms. Golbeck to speak to that master plan quickly? Just because it was been below the line, and maybe you could just speak to it, what it would accomplish and the timeline for that.
Yeah, so previously the plan for resourcing fire services and RCMP is that we alternate adding a member every other year. We know that that's not sort of the most scientific approach, and though it's equitable, we have different demographic trends in our growth in the community that we feel we need to analyze to be able to make more data-driven decisions about what we resource and when. Additionally, we don't have a good growth plan for bylaw, and we know that there is significant pressure on our bylaw teams as the community grows and we have challenges like, excuse me, like parking and animal control bylaw enforcement challenges and so on. So we feel there's a strong rationale to do a good data-driven analysis about what to resource and when, and what issues to focus on based on community trends. The timeline for that is we would do that in the first half of this coming year in preparation for the budget cycle for next year.
Councillor Stoner?
Would we be completing that in-house or bringing on a consultant?
We would bring a consultant to support us.
Any other questions about what was added? Councillor Stoner?
How does that complement the HR not master plan, but broader study that we're doing over this past year in terms of resourcing for the district?
Yeah, it certainly does complement it, but there are some specific technical competencies around looking at demographic trends with respect to public safety. For example, population to RCMP member ratio is something that is quite technical in nature and not something that a general HR professional would be able to address efficiently. So that's the kind of thing that we would look at.
Okay, so this is the piece that has bumped up our taxes.
This is the piece that has bumped up our taxes slightly.
Slightly. And just for clarity, it is the piece that bumped it up that 0.2%?
Yes, the
There's
downtown
nothing
street
from service level
concept
changes
was,
that's done that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question there.
So we still have to look at service level changes, but the tax bump from 2.7 to 2.9 is coming from special projects, not from service level changes.
that is correct. And I will, to address the same question that was raised previously, we are currently working on the premise that if council does not provide resolution to include other projects which are not currently funded, we will proceed to prepare additional future documentation based on the analysis that has been presented to you today. I.e., there is a line, and if it's below the line today and you don't ask us to move it up, it will stay where it is.
For the public here, information meeting. Councillor Stoner.
To the mayor's point, in the budget that I'm looking at, the public safety master plan is line 60, and it is coming out of reserves, not out of taxation. So then how come it increased the taxation?
It did
request?
not increase.
Oh, it did not.
The downtown streetscape was funded by tax for $45,000, and the estuary environment coordination plan for $20,000 were funded from taxes. If I may,
I don't see any more hands. That doesn't mean there won't be, but continue.
now, the part that we're here to have a longer discussion on today is this, and I will.
We're whispering over there. Who's doing what?
Exactly.
Now, I'm driving, sorry,
He's driving, I'm
driving,
actually
she's
driving.
Dot.
Navigating,
Navigate,
thank you.
yes, thank you.
So further to our meeting last time with council around service level changes, we had indicated we were waiting for the draft report from our consultants on our short-term capacity needs. The longer-term workforce planning will be provided in March. So we received an initial draft, and I had a phone call with the consultant. And essentially what they've done is they've outlined service areas and recommendations for those service areas in terms of where we need to grow capacity. Where we don't need to grow capacity, i.e. hire more people, but restructure has also been provided. At this time, staff, we're still working out the nuance of actual positions with this, so we didn't want to provide that detail today. But given what the consultants have provided, I'll walk through the service areas. As we indicated last week, we're confident that we can fulfill the immediate capacity requirements and restructuring within the contingency that was originally provided to council in the proposed budget, with the caveat that that is a prorated number for 2020, given that hiring new positions takes time, and there would be a non-discretionary service level increase in 2021 of approximately $150,000 to annualize the positions in the 475 that's in this year's budget. So in terms of increasing capacity,
That's about 0.5%
for next year.
Is it not?
Correct. 0.5%. In terms of increasing capacity, one of the biggest areas that the consultants pointed out was our administrative support. And what this means is that essentially we have a lot of senior level employees that are doing a lot of administrative work, which means that we are paying a lot of money for administrative work and not getting the best value out of our technical and professional positions that we pay more salary to. What that structure looks like, we're still working out with the consultants in terms of their recommendations and how that would look. Finance specifically indicated that there's capacity that needs growing there, and again, given that we are now recruiting for a new CFO, we're looking at the structure of that department and the best way to build that capacity. Human resources, so there is a coordinator in the budget that's being offset by ideally WorkSafe VC premium decreases as well as contract money that we're currently using, and again, we're looking at the structure of that
department. So this is where, in terms of also looking at jobs, we're looking at structures of the departments to make sure that we're optimizing the capacity and not just throwing more people at it. IT security came up loud and clear, as well as support for legislative services, as things like FOIs continue to grow, and that value, leveraging value out of our more senior employees versus the administrative side of that department. So that's the increased capacity service areas that the consultants have pointed out. And we're no surprise to staff, ultimately. So we're fairly aligned with what we see and what they've pointed out.
Councillor Pettingill?
So IT security would typically imply not just people, but hardware, software, that kind of thing too. Would those non-human aspects be capturing the TTP, or we would expect a corresponding budget ask in 2021 for, you know, if we add, like, the people is only part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's correct. I will try to answer, and then Ms. Arthurs can help.
Probably got it.
This refers specifically to a lead, so somebody that is their main job, is to ensure IT security, versus currently it's done, I don't want to say off the side of our desk, because we do prioritize it, but the growth and the need for security is to such an extent that we need someone dedicated to it. We do currently have a lot of software and systems that provide that security. Should this person come in and then decide that we need even more, it would be a future ask. Sorry?
It's sort of already in the budget.
Yeah.
There's line items already there.
Okay, let's move on.
So optimizing capacity, this is around primarily restructuring departments, managing span of control. So one of the issues we have in a lot of our departments is, as we've grown, especially in engineering and planning, for example, we have one director with several direct reports. And it's not the best leadership setup in terms of leveraging the leadership of the director, because they get spread too thin. And then again, you know, in terms of leveraging the value of the different levels of employee, that doesn't happen either. So we will be looking at optimizing the capacity through the organization of the departments. That doesn't mean new people. It may mean changing positions or reclassifying some, but that's relatively low in terms of an up in the salary. RCMP administration is another one where we're looking at optimizing administration with the RCMP municipal employees and bylaw, and again creating that administrative strength that needs to be more robust. And then further to the consultant's report, it's interesting. There were some specific elements that have come in since we contracted with them, and that's primarily around, I would say, the facility area of the strategic plan. So when we look at the strategic goal of 3 shovel-ready municipal facilities, we did mention in the service level increase sheets last time when we had a separate line item for a facilities director. So we are including that in our capacity recommendation, capacity increase recommendation. We do believe through our financial analyst, Mr. Russell, that we can capitalize that position at the outset with the different projects that this person would be responsible for. So in terms of tax impact, it would be a net 0. Economic development, interestingly, the consultants indicated that based on their current workload and the strategic priorities, that they don't need to grow their staff. And this is where sometimes we don't see eye to eye with consultants. And we did again have the economic development officer specialist outside of the contingency, because we recognize it's a council priority and wanted to highlight that for council's decision. As staff, we've recommended that it is included in that contingency amount, just given that the growth and the potential to leverage that position to achieve the strategic goals in the economic development portfolio. Primarily, it would be around the sector strategy implementation, and then taking on some of the marine action strategy elements as well. That is it in terms of growing capacity from a staff point of view and service level changes.
Okay, so this year in FTE dollars, it's 475,000, but that would be annualized next year for an additional 150,000-ish.
Correct.
If all those positions get hired this year.
If they all get hired this year. That's the other caveat, is that staggering that number of hires takes some time.
I know you had sort of categories of needing administrative support, and then you had sort of planning, building, public works in a separate category, optimization, but can I assume that the administration actually cuts across every department?
Correct.
Okay, so is there a specific, I think for council then, is that in approving the 475, which will include these two positions, that's what I just heard, you're committing to that amount this year, but you are then committing to that 0.5% tax increase right off the bat in 2020. Because those bodies would be here and they would continue. I mean, not all of them. Obviously, the facility build lead will be capitalized with each of those projects, but most of the others will require ongoing operating dollars. So that's why staff's brought this to us, is we can fund all of that, some of it, none of it. So if you've got any questions around it, fire away, Councilor Pengill.
Did we get any sense from the initial report that, you know, if we required certain staff to get some certifications, that would mean a lot more people could take on tasks and remove bottlenecks, and, you know, or is it really we need some more people and we need to do some restructuring?
To answer that question through the mayor, it's volume as well as restructuring, and because we're in the restructuring is optimizing the structure and the people we currently have, and that definitely has something to do with it. It's more about, we have people that are certified and professional and very skilled, and they're getting sucked into administration and more day-to-day. So if we build that capacity behind them, then they can do more value-added work. And then with others, like the IT security, there's just a hole.
Councilor Anderson. I can always tell when you're going to ask a question. You start thinking it before you put your hand up. Go ahead.
From my observation, I wrote down your comment, Ms. Lende, about better leveraging capacity of senior employees. And from my observation, this is something that is very much a need, a pressing need. Sometimes I even look at the communications traffic and wonder whether our top talent should be engaged to that degree in some of our communications practices within the district, within the public. But I wanted to move to the next slide, if you wish, or the other one that you had there. And I'll just make the general observation, because we may come back to some other, the topic of marine action strategy. But it seems to me that, now this was the one with the facility lead. Yes, thank you. So when we consider adding staff to, for example, economic development, and you've mentioned two programs, the sector strategy implementation and the marine action strategy, I think there's quite a distinction between the two, which is significant for me. And that is, we don't yet have the sector strategy plan available to us. There hasn't been a reporting for us to see a work plan. However, for the marine action strategy, there is a very detailed work plan. And I would suggest that there's areas there that we need to put extra attention to. And so what the point I'm making is there a work plan in place? Yes and no, or that's an important issue. I'd like to see that work plan. And for some areas we do.
For the sector strategy?
Yes, we don't have that one yet. We don't have.
No, that work's not finished yet.
No, that's correct. That's what I'm saying. So we don't know what that is. So I wouldn't be able to advise on whether there's any need for just can't offer an opinion on that. I can for the marine action strategy. We do have a detailed work plan there. Lots of work has been done. And I do feel that we need to add resources to that area. there's a lot coming down the pipe in economic development, tourism impact strategy. So there's reports coming down the pipe that I don't feel ready to say, hey, we should add more resources there too. I just wanted to make the distinction with marine action strategy where I think we do.
So you would support adding the position?
For economic development, now that is really planning an economic development, but to add staffing to that area, I think is overdue. Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Pennington?
So we heard about a public safety master plan, and then there was RCMP administration as one of the areas of need. Just wondering why we wouldn't wait for the master plan for the RCMP administration. Like, why is that outside?
Through you, Mayor Elliott, this is where we talk about optimizing capacity. So this is taking our current staff with bylaw and RCMP and potentially optimizing the capacity with what we have. And then the public safety master plan is more about the technical positions, so actual RCMP members, firefighters, bylaw officers.
Mr. Russell, if we reduce this 475, does it impact our taxes this year or just next year?
If we were to reduce the 475, it would reduce the tax in 2020. And presumption would be that if the direction was to reduce that amount and reduce the amount of staff that was added, let's say, as opposed to simply delaying things, then it would probably also have an impact in 2021. If the direction was to spread things out a little more, delay things, it would have an impact in 2020, and the impact in 2021 would be indeterminate, let's say, at this point, depending on what had to be delayed.
The reason for my question is that we haven't seen the report yet, and this is an estimate. It's a pretty large estimate, but I wonder too, if we saw the final report, whether we would, when we do add sort of RCMP positions, and we've always tried to level that out so there isn't just a big spike, and I'm curious to know whether we can smooth it a little bit by not putting it all in this year. Although I can sense that if we put some of it in this year and then annualize that in 2021 and then add the next chunk in, we're probably doing almost the same thing. But
might I suggest that in keeping with our ongoing strategy of alternating replacements of RCMP and fire, we're currently planning to add RCMP in 2021. So we could lower this number, but if you were to lower this number and simply push it into 2021, we're already looking today at adding RCMP officers, for example, in 2021, because that's our longer term plan. So I think that it's almost a bit of robbing Peter to pay Paul, so to speak, if we get into trying to move these positions around. I certainly understand council's concern and probably wanting to see a little more detail out of the report first before they finalize these decisions. I think that may be possible for us still to hit our timelines, depending on what time the report is expected to arrive.
Mm-hmm. And further, if I can add to that, Mayor Elliott, in terms of the actual staffing and the capacity, certainly this is what staff are recommending based on what we've learned from the consultants and we see within our needs for capacity. Could we smooth it out over 3 years instead of 2? Yes, with council and the public understanding that then there will still be some service gaps, but nonetheless, it's a challenge we always face in terms of where to resource and how to deliver the best service.
yeah, I suppose that one of the ways that I'm thinking about this, and then I'll move on because I've got a number of hands, is that if we brought in some of the key positions related to our strategic plan and the security piece, which is a risk management piece, and the economic development and the facilities person, but then we focused on bringing on all the new administrative positions, then potentially you're left now with an optimization exercise with the departments that received all that administrative support, because now we've freed up senior level people to work differently, because we've given them what they need in terms of the administrative support. And so to me, there's almost a strategy in how we implement, because, well, one, council hasn't seen the report, and two, it's a big jump and it's a big commitment, knowing that we likely have to add an RCMP officer, which is like a 1% tax increase right off the bat, and then we're adding another 0.5% if we annualized all of these positions. So what I'm wondering is, if we focus on the optimization, bring in all the administrative support and some key positions, and then look at optimization again before we do a next level. So that's just something to sit with. I don't need an answer to that now, but that's kind of where I'm thinking. So I've got Councillor Stoner, Councillor Race, and then Councillor Herbert, and Councillor Fangill.
And yeah, and I was just trying to pull up the numbers of, I was curious how much those two positions, the IT and the ECDev position, account for that 475 in terms of, I know that you mentioned you've kind of done the math that you think it can get absorbed, but I'm just curious, without having seen that final report, are you putting the cart before the horse in terms of identifying those as the positions that we need?
So 94,600 is the IT, 108,000 is the facility planning director, and the ECDev is 80,000. 80,500.
And then what we've done with those is we've prorated them for 2/3 of a year because of the recruiting lag.
So that's almost 2/3 of that 475 budget.
Let me do the math. The facilities manager is capitalized,
Okay.
so it's about 120. A little higher, 130. It's about 130 of the 475 for the IT position and the economic development position. Prorated.
Councillor Race.
Thank you. I think just building on what the mayor was saying, is this the year to incur some of these costs? Should we put it off and so forth? I think it is. We are, again, I'll commend staff for it, dealing with a relatively low increase in taxation at the moment compared to time I've been in council, frankly, almost a historic low. So I think this is one of the things that we have the luxury of contemplating this year that we might not in other years. I think it is, generally speaking, work that we have to do. I have no doubt about that. And so I think this is the time to press on with that. If we put it off a year, I think what we're asking for is possibly a bigger spike down the road to get to where we want to be. So I'm supportive of it going in the budget this year. The other comment I'll make with respect to the RCMP is, it's my understanding we're on this program, which we started off in the middle of last term, I think, of a firefighter 1 year, an RCMP officer the next year, and so forth, which was a very rough guess at how we get from where we were to 2030, when we expected the population to almost double, depending on who you talk to and when you talk to them. And this was a way of, once again, sort of gradually increasing as opposed to hitting a spike at some point. So with respect to 2021, if we, following that program, and we don't change course with the plan we might receive, my understanding is we would have to be prepared to commit about a year in advance. If we expect that person to show up in 2021 and start paying for that person in 2021, we would have to be prepared to make that commitment. And so I'll just leave that with staff to maybe think about and come back and tell us how we want to do that. I understand it wouldn't impact directly the 2020 budget, which is what's in front of us now, but we are talking about a 5-year plan as well at the same time. So I guess the question is when that person, or the cost of that person, would actually show up in the budget, and what we have to do ahead of time to keep that timing going on. Because presumably the year after that, unless we change course again, we're probably talking about a firefighter again if we continue on the same course. And so you wouldn't, I think we want to try to avoid doubling up in 1 year and having 2 people come on as opposed to just 1 each year.
So, if I could attempt to answer some of your questions, Councillor Reyes. In the presentation that we have provided to you, we have a printout which had a 3-year analysis of 19, 20, 21 of our estimates of overall spending. And you will see that within that, with the annualizations of the positions that were put forward and the plan in front of you today, with the addition of the projected RCMP officer, that would have been part of the package that you received last week.
Well, last week's package.
As opposed to today. You will see that the overall increase in taxation is approximately $1.2 million. That's in the neighborhood of 4%. So to your comment, that the 3%-ish that we're looking at this year for 2020 seems reasonable, and you have concerns about how delaying the implementation of the workforce contingency plan might impact future costs. As it sits right now, the annualization of this plan and the increase in RCMP, along with other commitments that the organization has made, so for example, debt financing associated with capital projects, those types of things, we're looking at roughly today an approximately $1.2 million increase year over year from 2020 to 2021 for tax impact. Looking at today's numbers, that's around 4%. So I think that, in an attempt to smooth it, the 3% this year and might be 4% the following year, needless to say, I think that we would have an opportunity to work to bring that number down somewhat. But I'm a little leery looking at the numbers today to recommend pushing too much of this workforce plan into future years, because it already looks like we're looking at a fairly large number for 2021 as a result of this annualization of this plan, plus the additional workforce or work members that we anticipate will be required for the RCMP and other costs that we anticipate will be escalating. For example, I know that we're anticipating an increase in debt financing as a result of our ongoing funding of the dike management program, as an example.
Councillor Bird.
Thank you. And thank you for the explanations. That was taking care of some of my questions. When it comes time to present it to the public, which we have scheduled coming up in January, Ms. Lundy gave us a good breakdown today. I think I've got an understanding of it. Will that be further fleshed out at that point to further justify this 475 line items in there as it is, or how do we handle that going forward? Because I think there's we have a deeper understanding here, although we still have some questions, but just how do we communicate that out further? Do you propose that time? Because it's kind of conceptual, but a big lump that's not clearly defined.
Through Mayor Elliott, I recognize it's conceptual and it's a big lump, but the lump is broken down into our service areas. By that period of time, we will have specific positions recommended through the report and then through staff dovetailing with that, should council want that level of detail to be provided.
My preference would be that we got, a little bit further, there for the public with this one. I'm comfortable with the cost.
Councilor Bagnell.
So I think we may be getting, in a way, at the same thing as Councilor Herford, but, and I understand that at this point we have to probably answer in general terms, but if we don't do this versus if we do it, what's the difference in my experience as a sort of regular person walking down the street in Squamish? Like, if we do these things, then the time to process a business permit goes to half, or it stays where it is, or versus, if we don't do it, it's going to take twice as long to process a business permit. Like, what's kind of my experience if we do this versus if we don't?
Through the mayor, I'm probably pointing at the obvious here, but all of these service areas are corporate, so this is the backbone of the actual organization. So council's done a very good job of beefing up the outward-facing positions that are dealing with development, as an example, so planning and engineering, plan checker for building to help with those processes. Certainly our TTP project to improve our technical system behind those processes. Where we're at now is our level of risk is high when we look at the organization that's supporting the rest of the municipal services, the rest of the organization. So finance, there's a level of risk. Human resources currently with our OH&S program and our WorkSafe premiums, and just generally looking after risk areas when it comes to staff, and recruiting and retention and succession. So this is really about shoring up the organization that supports, or part of the organization that supports the broader organization. And so really the impact is felt primarily on the inside, but it is protecting the citizens from the risk that we incur.
Yeah, follow up. I want to try and wrap up here pretty quick.
So more specifically, like, what if I was saying, well, let's deal with the risk or a bad event when it happens. Like, what's the advantage to me just walking down the street to sort of proactively try and shore this stuff up?
Through the mayor, we're already seeing really, really high WorkSafe BC premiums that we're paying for. Great West Life premiums that we're paying for through a lack of attendance management, return to work as an example. Retention and succession of key people that we've invested a lot in is huge in terms of the employee market, affordability, demographics that we're hiring. So that's just HR. IT security, Ms. Arthurs can probably speak to the cost of our last issue that we had to deal with is at least twice what a position would be to help shore that up. So the costs are already happening. Another risk is not meeting legislative deadlines, so freedom of information requests. If we can't get those all done, other things slide. As a citizen, are they going to feel it day to day? Ultimately it does show up in taxation because things are costing us more money. It's also just our responsibility legislatively and also to our employees. I mean, we're a service organization. Our biggest piece of the budget primarily is payroll, or operating budget, and to not shore that up is irresponsible of me.
So I think for me, I need a breakdown more than just 475. The HR position, we've got one here that's going to be paid for by reducing our WorkSafe fees. Is there more HR?
There's more HR recommended, but that's not in here necessarily. So this includes, all of this includes those net zero positions as well.
Because I think, like, for me, council needs to have the opportunity to say, what are the positions we're adding, and is there another way to do business? So that's my concern, is that it's not just the 475, there's a whole bunch of positions on this list, some of them which will be paid for by fees, other which do impact taxation. So, and there's like, the climate leadership team is going to report, so we're going to have to make bigger investments in transit and that sort of thing. We're still working on our waste piece, so like I'm just really hesitant to approve something that I haven't seen. at this point. So whatever detail we can provide before we finalize this budget, I think is really important, and the responsible thing for us to do as a council, to make sure that we are directing resources where they're needed, shoring up where we have risks, but then also just taking a moment to ask the question is, well, is this the way that we should be doing business? Is this a service that we should be providing as a municipality? Because this consultant will have compared us to many other municipalities, but that doesn't mean to say that there's just one way of accomplishing all these tasks. So whatever we can provide by the public meeting and subsequent to that, I think would be really helpful. But I'm happy at this point to let it go to the public meeting, as long as we can sort of provide something for the public around it that's a little bit more robust. I'm interested to see what they have to say. Okay, so council, really our decision today is, are we comfortable sending what we've agreed to today to the public meeting? And then after that public meeting, we'll have a conversation about carry forwards, and then be able to revisit what we've approved. We also have to incorporate the community enhancement grants, which we surpassed our target a little bit today, so that needs to go in. Councillor Stoner.
I just had one other clarifying question on the service level change. I think, Mayor Elliott, you brought up a few meetings past on the camp instructor, and just the rationale behind it seems to be a little bit confusing still, in terms of the issue identified as the part-time positions, and the proposal is to reduce leaders' hours and create a new part-time role. That's line number 2.
Sorry, let me just refresh myself here for a moment.
Of course.
So this is a reallocation from rec leader hours and an increase in camp instructor hours. So the the additional capacity in camp instructor is offset partly by fees of providing more camp sessions, but we recognize that the wait list is more significant for camps than for programs, and so we are moving some of the rec program resources over to the camp side.
Okay, that still doesn't address the component that we're creating a new part-time position and reducing hours. I'm assuming either that's a full-time position, reducing it to a new part-time position. When the opening sentence here states that one of the bigger issues is that was the lack of progression for upward mobility and lack of positions that provide greater than 20 hours per week.
Yeah, I think that was a typo. I think it was probably a holdover from a different request that we made in there. It is an issue in recreation that we have a lot of part-time positions, and that's the nature of the work.
So can we ask that explanation gets updated before this goes to the public, please?
Absolutely,
Yep.
yeah.
Because I agree, Councillor Stoner was really very confusing explanation for something around increasing capacity.
Yes.
Which was to take capacity from somewhere else.
Thank you.
So, okay, any other questions? I don't see any hands, so I think we're good on what we've got, Mr. Russell, to take to the public meeting for consultation with the public. I would be curious if there's a conversation we need to have about any feedback we've received from the public so far, or council's input into what that public meeting looks like. Do we have a sense yet? Or how do we wrap up this conversation? There was a few other things on your agenda there today.
Do you want me to speak to the public engagement?
Sure.
Okay. So through Ms. Moore, Christina Moore, we haven't received any particular feedback to the budget.
Can you speak up for council?
Yeah, sorry. At this time, we don't have any robust feedback to provide council outside of the survey. Ms. Moore is compiling anything that's coming in currently. We wanted to ask council about the public information meeting. There was talk of combining it. There's the community.
Climate leadership?
Thank you. Climate action plan public meeting will be occurring in and around the same time, probably about 2 weeks apart. Staff talked about combining them. There was some ideas floated around that to leverage the motivation and not have public engagement fatigue, so to speak. One of the concerns, and this is for council to consider, is that there's one meeting that's very specific around climate, and then the budget, of course, covers the whole strategic plan and OCP and organizational plan. So we were concerned about combining the two may only attract a certain group of people. The other is the timing of the budget public engagement or public information meeting. Staff would recommend we have it January 16th. The Community Climate Action Plan meeting and leadership team meeting is scheduled for approximately 2 weeks after that.
Thoughts? Councilor Herford?
I think that these, I hear you, I hear the concerns around the fatigue, the public engagement fatigue, but I think if we did both of those public informations at the same time, there would be an expectation, if I went to that meeting, that there would really be something called out in the budget in relation to that. As soon as we haven't really got there, some of these things tie in. We haven't started doing it. I think they're very two separate things at this point, and will inform future budgets. But I don't. That work of that climate action team hasn't really been represented in this budget, so I think they're separate projects.
I suppose, what's the draw? It's hard to get people to come to a budget engagement meeting. And one of the key people that always came is now sitting at this table, so. But we're not all like that. We don't all love public budgets the same way. Councilor Penfield.
Can we make a draft of the Climate Action Committee stuff available at the budget meeting? Kind of halfway.
Well, I think, yeah, that might be, there's a risk to that for sure. If I put my facilitator hat on in my other life, then it probably wouldn't be the preference of our staff to sort of trickle it out. I think they would want to. Councilor Stone.
I'm divided on whether we combine them or not. I kind of think that we should. I think that the public engagement fatigue is a real thing. And there's one opportunity in terms of having more dates potentially brings more people out, but realistically I don't think budget is exciting enough to pull people out onto itself. So I think combining them, and if we have the right space that allows kind of some separation in the conversation, representation in both, then we can do that. But I'd also suggest, I think we had previously discussed also keeping it as a topic for a council coffee call, the budget per se, and so I'd also put that out there as a suggestion that councillors do a coffee call specifically related around the budget in that kind of time frame as well.
That's a good idea. Councilor Penfield?
Just in general, I think they're both big topics, so I would rather, just so we can dig into them, those that choose to come out have the time to do so. But also, you know, I think we're expecting short-term rental to come sometime in January, and some of those may create a lot of thoughts and feedback, and that might encourage people to come out to the budget or any opportunity to come and speak to us. So we may have other things that bring people out to the budget.
Councilor Anderson?
I strongly support the notion of Councillor Stoner on you taking the opportunity to coffee crawl program for the budget input, in addition to what else we may do. I wonder whether if we were to go, I'm often, I reflect over the years that I've attended budget meetings, the effort that staff puts into these sessions, and it really is significant. And I always feel sorry for them because it is, you know, they do put on a great show, if you like. And but I would like to just offer the suggestion that this morning I happened to be in conversation with the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce, who was concerned that the chamber board be apprised of opportunities that for them to offer input. They're planning on making input, I gather. And so I told them that there would be a public meeting, but they're interested in any and all opportunities. And perhaps the chamber may be a kind of a sounding board about ideas for convening a public input meeting. There'll be a number of people within the business community who have traditionally and would be interested to come out. So suggestion that we contacted, that the chamber could offer some advice and input as to how we structure this. And I think that would be a good gesture for the business community.
Councillor French.
Yeah, I'm not super enthusiastic with combining the climate topic with our budget. I feel like the climate topic will capsize the budget. I see where there's the possibility of having a great deal of interest in that and very little in the budget, and the budget gets severely overshadowed. I also like the
It's
coffee
like serving
crawl.
Brussels sprouts with mashed potatoes.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Definitely support coffee crawl.
Great. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. I'm of the same view that we should have a budget open house or public meeting is required by call.
It is.
So it's something we have to do, and the question is whether we add anything else onto it. And the problem with that, notwithstanding the fact that often people don't show up, often people do show up, and we have had budget meetings in the past that have generated a lot of interest. But if we had something like Climate Come, then it kind of, as Councillor French says, sort of overwhelms it. And really, the budget is about all the things we're doing, not just one of them. And so I think it's important to give the budget its time by itself. There's a whole bunch of different aspects to it. And whether people take the opportunity up or not, or the business community might come this year and they haven't in others, we'll see. But I think we want to dedicate that time to it.
Right, so there's general consensus that the budget meeting should be the budget meeting. I'm still not convinced, but anyway. And then we combine it with a budget-specific council coffee crawl.
Mayor Elliott, one of the communication staff works with us on this side of things. Of course, it's their area of expertise. And suggestion is to, again, have it at the ledge with some music, some food, and make it more informal and individual conversations with councillors, make it more social than in council chambers, if that's something that council's amenable to.
I think generally that worked well last year, just to nod ahead, so that would be kind of the right way to go, except for Councillor Anderson wants to say.
I was skeptical in advance of last year's session at the Ledge about the musical component. I found during the evening that I didn't notice, but I wouldn't want to have it obstructive, if you like. It may not be necessary. That's just my view. I went in anticipating that was going to be turning into something that it maybe shouldn't be, but in fact I didn't notice the music, and that was a good thing from my point of view.
So I've heard council say we don't want to draw away from the budget, but there are important pieces of work that we're doing, and so I wonder, and this is a proposal, is if we had our zero waste team, I know they're working on simplifying what to do with what, and I wonder if that's an opportunity to come and look at the budget, but also see some of our new educational material around source separation and what plastic goes where and how our system works. And that could just be a booth, but it's just another, so something like that, like it's just not about the budget, it's also about some of the other important initiatives that we're working on. Bear aware, but just something like that people are struggling with. Just and staff may have some others out there that might bring feet in at least.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I wouldn't lose the opportunity to sort of cross-advertise, if you like. I think when I say it's a budget meeting and putting something else in there might detract from it. I'm thinking of another presentation or another kind of agenda item, if you like. So, but handing out pamphlets on bareware and waste diversion and all kinds of stuff, or having a booth there, to me is not that kind of distraction.
There might be a crossover here for attracting the business community, because Keely could set up like what a system would look like inside a business, and like come and see it as a business owner, what your bin system could look like. It's neat, it's efficient. So just, I would brainstorm with staff a little bit more to see if there's some fertile ground there for getting more feet in the door without taking away from our budget presentation. Councillor Ford?
Thank you. I think I agree with adding to it. I just think that environmental piece was
Yeah, it's big.
It's big, and there's other things the diking project in Bracken comes to mind that we're consulting on, and maybe having them there for that would be helpful as well. So we can leverage where we do need feedback in these other spots, and it'll feed into, hopefully the output of that will feed into future budgets. So it is related, but I think again, that climate thing it's a big one, so I'd like to have that.
Okay. All right. Is that good?
Thank you.
All right. Excellent. I think we're good. Are we good, Mr. Russell? You tell me. Did you get everything done off your list today?
I believe we did.
Okay.
There were some things that you had on your list. I'm not sure if you feel that they were dealt with, but
No, as long as I know when we're talking about carry forward. I suppose one thing I wanted to raise with Mr. Buxton is that Sorga has approached us about doing a project around our trails master plan, and they were looking for some funding. I think we have that funding in contingency this year, but there's nothing in the budget necessarily set aside for next year, and so can there be a conversation with them in the short term?
15,000
Yeah.
on that trail plan. Yeah. We will dip into the pocket one more time.
Well,
Yes, trail
I
plan.
just,
Yep.
we haven't discussed it as a council, and so, I think we actually have the money in our contingency still, so there's a way that we can set it aside from 2019, but we would have to put a memo before, oh no, it's too late for that, it's our last meeting.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Because we would get 25.
No. Yes, if it is available in this year's contingency and we can deal with it that way, it's simply a matter, I think, getting council up to speed on what exactly that project is. And we can do that in relatively short order in January.
But that's contingency for 2019.
That's happened tonight.
Has
we
to happen
have to have it
tonight.
tonight.
you're looking at me.
The financial wizard,
Okay. I may have missed parts of
you did.
this discussion.
Yeah, and
This is-
Okay, because
it hasn't been the council yet, it hasn't been
Okay.
you yet.
So
I was
I'm
just
not-
thinking that we might miss an opportunity. Ms. Glendale?
Can I recommend that staff can go away here or in the break between this afternoon and tonight, and if we can put something together quickly for council to consider, and you feel it's a robust enough verbal that you could think about it, rather than try and do it on the fly right now. Or we could do it on the fly, it's up to you.
Okay. So, on penalty of Gary kicking me under the table, he's far enough
I think you're
away.
far away.
I know we promised not to talk about carry forward process, but you did want to speak about carry forward, so I will just make this comment. You have seen numbers on your two lists of carry forwards. So the comment I'm going to make with respect to that, we could provide you with some very high level information about the types of carry forwards that are being contemplated for next year from 2020 to 19 to 20. The point I would make is that we are going to be communicating with our budget managers this week, requesting that they finalize their asks early in January, and we will revise the compilation, let's say, at that point, to more accurately reflect total spending for this year and what they were able to accomplish and what they were not. So it just sounds that like the item that you were speaking to, for
Yeah.
example, might be incorporated within an existing project and the funds carried forward into next year to complete it. That was all I was going to suggest.
Yeah, and there may be an avenue for Councilor Rice and I to pursue the funding through the SLRD as well.
Yeah, that's their portion. Technical, sort of.
We could do both portions from there because we spend money together.
Yes, we do.
So there may be a solution through the SLRD.
Well, that's one solution.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was thinking about is if we somehow just designate for a potential expenditure, designate a portion of contingency, because otherwise, if I understand the process correctly, it just goes into next year as accumulated surplus if we don't spend it. And then it's such a fight to get money out of accumulated surplus.
Oh yeah, that's been really hard this year.
So
Pardon
anyway,
my sarcasm.
So I'll leave that thought with you. The other thing in the carry forwards, though, that just reminded me of something, because in the past, some of the carry forwards are due to significant construction projects that couldn't get put out to tender until after we finalized the budget finally in May. And we had the commitment for staff to go out and tender them and so forth, and they just plain didn't get done that year. And we've had a series, not a series, but we've had occasions in the past for early releases of funds. And so I don't know if there's those types of projects out there that we might want to consider that to try to avoid that, so that staff in January can start preparing tender documents and get it out to tender, with the idea of possibly starting construction in May instead of August to avoid some of the carryovers. So, and I know the whole purpose of us trying to get the budget going earlier and earlier was so that the staff would have certainty, particularly with these types of projects, so they could get out into the market soon after the new year. But last year, of course, we had the election and it kind of threw everything off. So I understand that problem. But
So to that question, these discussions have been held with staff, between staff and finance, with respect to projects they wish to carry forward, and the timing on when they anticipate that they will be able to get started on those projects. One of the positives with the timing that we're looking at now, bringing it back where potentially we would have approval of the financial plan in February, it certainly would speed up their ability to get out to tender. The other comment is, yes, I agree with you, and there is a reasonable possibility that administration will approach council for early release to allow us to advance specific projects or specific tenders where it has been identified that it would be beneficial to do so.
Okay, I'm sorry I took us off track. So we'll come back to this sort of thing, and we might pursue a different angle. I want to wrap up, so try not to take us in too different a direction here.
Right. This is concerning budget input. We do in fact have a letter that was delivered via the district's budget input website. It is from Rebecca McCleary of the Canadian Coastal Sailing. My question is, when would we address this and any other input? Would it be at the next meeting or following the public input meeting?
Given that we're wrapping up today, it would be at our next council meeting or public information meeting, whichever comes first, which it sounds like will be the public information meeting, and then sorry, let me back up. Public information meeting, following meeting with council incorporates all the staff feedback, so anything we haven't addressed to date will be incorporated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I think we're good. Thank you. Sorry, just getting back to my agenda. Motion to close. Moved by Councilor Stoner, second by Councilor Herford. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.